What if I told you that one of these albums stayed on the charts for over 14 years, breaking records while breaking musical boundaries? From the dreamy sounds of Dark Side of the Moon to the furious shout of Never Mind the Bollocks, these albums shook the world. Here are the 10 best rock albums of the 70s that will blow your mind. 1. Led Zeppelin 4. Led Zeppelin's fourth album, often called Led Zeppelin 4 because it didn't have a title on the cover, was so great because it mixed powerful, heavy rock music with gentle, beautiful folk songs in a way that no one had ever done so perfectly before. It became one of the best-selling albums of all time, and just in the United States, it has sold over 24 million copies. That's enough for almost 1 in every 10 people there to have one. One reason so many people loved it was because it had the super famous song Stairway to Heaven, which started soft and slow and built up to an amazing guitar solo. People said it was like a journey in a song. The band even decided not to put their name or the album title on the cover, just 4 strange little pictures, or symbols, one for each band member. This made the album seem very mysterious and cool, and people wanted to know what was inside. It was like a secret everyone wanted to be in on. The album was made in a special old house in the English countryside called Headley Grange, which the band said helped them feel creative and try new things. Besides Stairway to Heaven, there were other amazing songs too. Black Dog had a really cool, tricky guitar part, and singer Robert Plant sounded super powerful. Rock and Roll was a fast, fun song that made you want to dance. Then there were songs like The Battle of Evermore, which sounded like an old folk story and even had a singer named Sandy Denny join them. The only time Led Zeppelin ever had a guest singer on one of their albums. Guitar player Jimmy Page, who also produced the album, was a master at making the band sound huge and exciting. John Bonham was one of the greatest drummers ever, and his playing on this album was incredible, especially on the song When the Levee Breaks, which had a giant booming drum sound that people still copy today. Bass player John Paul Jones added amazing musical ideas on bass and keyboards. Led Zeppelin 4 showed that rock music could be heavy and loud, but also smart, beautiful, and full of surprises. It's an album that still sounds fresh and powerful, and it made Led Zeppelin one of the biggest bands in the world. But what if a rock album could take you on a journey through time, money, madness, and never leave the charts for over a decade? Something really special about how they made When the Levee Breaks sound so big was where they recorded the drums. John Bonham set up his drum kit at the bottom of a staircase in the big hall of Headley Grange, and they hung microphones from the stairs way up high. This made his drums sound huge, like thunder echoing through a giant space. It was a clever trick that Jimmy Page thought of. Also, the song's Misty Mountain Hops talks about young people wanting to be free and live differently, which was a big feeling for many kids at that time. The 4 symbols on the album cover were chosen by each band member to represent themselves. And nobody really knows all the secret meanings, which adds to the album's cool mystery even today. People would spend hours looking at the cover and listening to the music, trying to figure it all out. 2. The Dark Side of the Moon. Pink Floyd's album The Dark Side of the Moon was so incredibly great because it did something almost no other album has ever done. It stayed on the Billboard music charts in America for an unbelievable 741 weeks in a row from 1973 to 1988. That's over 14 years. All around the world, this amazing album has sold over 50 million copies, which is a truly huge number of records. What made it so special? Well, the songs were about big ideas that everyone thinks about, like time passing by, money, arguments, feeling sad or worried, and getting older. This meant anyone could listen and feel like the songs were talking about their own life. Another reason it was so great was the sound. Pink Floyd used all sorts of cool sound effects that were new at the time, like clocks ticking and ringing, cash registers opening, and a heartbeat that starts and ends the album. This made it feel like more than just songs. It felt like a whole experience, almost like a movie for your ears. The band, with Roger Waters writing all the words and David Gilmour playing amazing guitar and singing, along with Richard Wright on keyboards and Nick Mason on drums, worked very hard in the famous Abbey Road studios in London to make this album perfect. They used new ways of recording music to create a very smooth and flowing sound, where one song would often blend right into the next. Songs like Money, with its cool cash register sounds and tricky rhythm, became big hits. Time had an amazing guitar solo by David Gilmour that many people think is one of the best ever played. Claire Torrey, a singer they invited, did an incredible wordless vocal part on the song The Great Gig in the Sky that gives people goosebumps. The album cover, with a beam of light going through a prism and coming out as a rainbow, is also one of the most famous album covers ever. It's simple, but very cool. The Dark Side of the Moon wasn't just popular when it came out. New generations of people keep discovering it and loving it because its music and its ideas about life still feel important and sound amazing today. It truly blew people's minds with its sound and its deep thoughts. And sometimes, the most unforgettable albums are the ones born out of heartbreak and chaos. A lot of the spoken words you hear on the album came from the band asking people questions. They interviewed roadies, doormen at the studio, and even Paul McCartney, though his answers weren't used. They asked things like, "Are you afraid of dying?" And "When was the last time you were violent?" The answers they got were mixed into the songs, making it feel even more real and personal. For example, the line, "I am not frightened of dying, anytime will do, I don't mind," came from Jerry O'Driscoll, who was a doorman at Abbey Road. The band also used a very early type of synthesizer called the EMS VCS-3 on many tracks, which helped create those spacey, swirly sounds that were so new and different. It was like they were painting pictures with sound. 3. Rumors. Fleetwood Mac's album Rumors was so great and became so huge because it was like listening to the band's real-life diary set to amazing music. When they were making the album, the two couples in the band, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, and John McVie and Christine McVie, were all breaking up. And the band's drummer, Mick Fleetwood, was also having problems in his marriage. All these sad and angry feelings went straight into the songs. People loved it because the songs were so honest and about real feelings that everyone has experienced, like heartbreak and wanting to move on. The album sold incredibly well, with over 40 million copies bought by people all over the world. It also had 4 big hit songs: Go Your Own Way, Dreams, Don't Stop, and You Make Loving Fun. It felt like every song could be a hit. Making the album was very hard because the band members were often not speaking to each other, or they were arguing. They recorded it in Sausalito, California, and stories from that time say there was a lot of emotion and tension in the studio. But somehow, all that drama helped them write some of the best songs of their lives. Lindsey Buckingham was a genius at putting the songs together and playing guitar. Stevie Nicks wrote beautiful, mysterious songs like Dreams, which became the band's only #1 hit in America. Christine McVie wrote catchy, hopeful songs like Don't Stop and You Make Loving Fun. Even though they were going through hard times personally, they managed to work together to make music that sounded smooth, catchy, and beautiful, with amazing harmonies from the 3 singers. Rumors won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year in 1978. It was an album that many people could relate to, and it proved that sometimes tough times can lead to truly great art. It's an album that still sounds fantastic today, and its story makes it even more special. But what happens when a failed rock opera gives birth to a thunderous new sound that redefines rock? One of the amazing things about Rumors is how different members of the band wrote songs that were almost like answers to each other. For example, Lindsey Buckingham's song Go Your Own Ways was clearly about his breakup with Stevie Nicks, and it sounded a bit angry. Then Stevie Nicks' song As Dreams He Is was also about their breakup, but it sounded more hopeful and dreamy. It was like they were talking to each other through their music, right there on the album for everyone to hear. The Songs That Change is the only one on the album that all 5 band members wrote together. They actually took parts from different unfinished songs and cleverly put them together to make this powerful track, which has a famous bass part by John McVie. It's like the song itself is about the band trying to stay together even when things were falling apart. 4. Who's Next? The Who's album Who's Next was mind-blowingly great because it took rock music to a whole new level with its powerful sound and its use of new musical instruments called synthesizers. These keyboards could make all sorts of new and exciting sounds that people hadn't really heard in rock music before. Guitarist Pete Townshend had been working on a big rock story called Lifehouse, but it got too complicated. So he took some of the best songs he had written for it and put them on Who's Next. This album ended up being packed with some of the Who's most famous and amazing songs, like Baba O'Riley, which many people call Teenage Wasteland, and Won't Get Fooled Again. These songs had incredible energy and sounded huge. While it might not have sold as many as some other giant albums, it was still a huge success, selling over 4 million copies, which showed lots of people loved this new powerful sound. The album showed how a rock band could be super loud and powerful, but also very smart and creative. Baba O'Riley starts with a cool, swirling synthesizer part that Pete Townshend created, which was very new for rock music at the time. Then Roger Daltrey's powerful voice comes in, and Keith Moon's wild drumming, and John Entwistle's amazing bass playing. It all builds up to an exciting violin solo at the end. Won't Get Fooled Again is another long, powerful song that also uses synthesizers in a really cool way and ends with a famous scream from Roger Daltrey. These songs became anthems, which are like special songs that lots of people sing along to and feel very strongly about. But the album wasn't just about loud songs. It also had beautiful songs like Behind Blue Eyes, which showed a softer, sadder side of the band. The Who recorded Who's Next with a producer named Glyn Johns, who helped them get a really clear and strong sound. Every member of the band was amazing. Townshend's guitar playing and songwriting, Daltrey's incredible singing, Entwistle's thundering and melodic bass, and Moon's crazy and brilliant drumming. Together, they made an album that was full of anger, hope, and amazing music. It still sounds exciting and new today. And then came the rise of a space rock star from another world who made music into theater. Pete Townshend was so interested in synthesizers that he actually fed information about his friend Meher Baba, an Indian spiritual master, and another composer named Terry Riley into the synthesizer to create some of the backing tracks for songs like Spaba O'Reilly's and Swon't Get Fooled Again. That's where the title Spaba O'Reilly's came from. It was a really futuristic idea for making music back then. The song "S'my Wife," written and sung by bass player John Entwistle, is a funny but rocking song about him being scared of his wife after he stayed out too late. It showed that other members of the band could write great songs too. Many people think Who's Next is The Who at their very best, with all their power and amazing songwriting coming together perfectly. 5. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. David Bowie's album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, was so great and mind-blowing because it wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a whole story about a make-believe rock star from outer space named Ziggy Stardust. David Bowie didn't just sing the songs. He pretended to be Ziggy Stardust, with wild orange hair, cool makeup, and amazing space-age costumes. This idea, called a concept album, was super exciting and new for many people. Ziggy was a rock star who came to Earth to bring a message of hope to young people before the world ended, but he ended up getting too famous and things went wrong. This story and Bowie's amazing character made a huge impact on music and fashion. The album sold very well, especially in places like the UK, where it sold over 1.5 million copies. And in total, around the world, it sold over 8 million copies, helping to make David Bowie a huge star. It showed that rock stars could be like actors playing a part, and it helped start a new style called glam rock, which was all about being flashy, fun, and a bit weird. The songs on the album tell Ziggy's story. 5 Years is about finding out the world is going to end. Starman is about Ziggy sending a message through the radio. Ziggy Stardust tells the story of Ziggy and his band, the Spiders from Mars, who were David Bowie's real band members. Mick Ronson on guitar, Trevor Bolder on bass, and Mick Woodmansey on drums. Mick Ronson's guitar playing was a huge part of the album's sound. It was loud, exciting, and really catchy. David Bowie's singing was amazing too. He could sound powerful, gentle, or even a bit crazy, depending on the song. The album was a perfect mix of great rock music, a cool story, and an unforgettable character. It made people think about fame, being an outsider, and what it means to be a rock star. Ziggy Stardust wasn't just an album. It was like a whole world that David Bowie created, and it changed rock music forever. It showed that music could be like theater, and it inspired so many other musicians to be more creative and daring. But what if a band pushed music even further, with opera, rock, and a 6-minute epic that no one believed would work? Before making the Ziggy Stardust album, David Bowie had actually traveled across America by bus, and what he saw there, all the different kinds of people, and the feeling of a big, sometimes strange country, gave him lots of ideas for the album. He also got ideas from other musicians like Iggy Pop and Lou Reed, who were known for being wild and different. The famous cover photo of Bowie as Ziggy Stardust was taken on a wet night in a London street called Hedden Street. The phone booth that used to be there became a famous spot for fans to visit. Bowie actually eliminated the Ziggy character at a concert in 1973, saying it was the last show they'd ever do. People were shocked, but it showed that Bowie was always ready to change and try new things, which is one reason he was such an amazing artist for so many years. 6. A Night at the Opera. Queen's album A Night at the Opera was so fantastic because it was like a wild musical adventure where the band showed off all the different kinds of music they could play, all on one record. It was also, at the time, the most expensive album ever made because Queen spent so much time in the studio trying out all their crazy ideas. And the biggest reason it blew everyone's mind was a song called Bohemian Rhapsody. This song was almost 6 minutes long, which was very long for a hit song back then. It changed from a soft ballad to a loud opera part, then to hard rock, all in one song. Many record company people thought it was too long and too strange to be a hit, but the band believed in it, and it became one of the most famous and loved songs ever. The success of Bohemian Rhapsody helped the album sell many millions of copies all over the world, more than 11 million in total, and made Queen into superstars. The album was named after a famous funny movie by the Marx Brothers, and just like a good variety show, it had all sorts of different sounding songs. There was a sweet, gentle song written by bass player John Deacon for his wife called You're My Best Friend, which was also a big hit. Guitar player Brian May wrote a catchy rock song called Sweet Lady, and a beautiful song that sounded like an old-timey band called Good Company, where he even played a ukulele and made his guitar sound like trumpets and clarinets. Singer Freddie Mercury, who was the main songwriter for Bohemian Rhapsody, also wrote a lovely piano song called Love of My Life, and a funny, heavy rock song about a rich lady called Death on Two Legs. The band, including drummer Roger Taylor, who also sang lead on his song I'm in Love with My Car, spent months recording the album, sometimes using so many vocal tracks for their amazing harmonies that the recording tape almost wore out. A Night at the Opera showed that Queen could do anything they wanted with music, from beautiful pop songs to super heavy rock, and they did it all with amazing skill and a sense of fun. It's an album full of surprises and incredible talent. Next up, an album that lured you in with Sunshine Dreams, then trapped you inside a hotel you could never leave. 7. Hotel California. The Eagles' album Hotel California was so great because it perfectly captured a feeling and a time, especially what it was like in California in the 1970s, with all its dreams and its darker sides. The biggest reason it's so famous is the amazing title song, Hotel California. This song is over 6 minutes long and tells a mysterious story about a strange hotel you can never leave. It has one of the most famous guitar solos in rock history, played by Don Felder and Joe Walsh. The song was a huge hit all over the world, and it helped the album sell a massive number of copies, more than 32 million worldwide, with over 26 million just in America. The album wasn't just about that one song, though. All the songs together painted a picture of life, love, and a feeling that maybe the good times were ending, which many people could connect with. The band, which included Don Henley and Glenn Frey, who were the main singers and songwriters, along with Randy Meisner, Don Felder, and Joe Walsh, worked very hard to make this album sound perfect. Don Henley said they wanted to make an album where all the songs were really good, not just a few hits. And they did. New Kid in Town, sung by Glenn Frey, was another #1 hit, a softer song about how fame can come and go. Life in the Fast Lane, co-written and sung by Joe Walsh, was a rocking song about living a wild, crazy life. There were also beautiful sad songs like Wasted Time. The Eagles were known for their amazing singing harmonies, where all their voices blended together perfectly, and this album is full of them. They were also great musicians. The album took a long time to make because they wanted every detail to be just right. Hotel California looked at the good and bad sides of the American dream, especially in California. It was a bit darker than their earlier, more country rock albums, but people loved its smart words and its smooth, polished rock sound. It's an album that still takes you to a specific time and place when you listen to it. And then there was one album that sounded like roaring engines, broken dreams, and a desperate run toward freedom. 8. Born to Run. Bruce Springsteen's album Born to Run was so incredibly great because it felt like a giant, exciting movie about young people wanting to escape their ordinary lives and find something amazing. This was the album that made Bruce Springsteen a huge star. Before Born to Run, he had made 2 albums that critics liked, but not many people bought. For this album, Bruce and his E Street Band worked incredibly hard in the studio, sometimes for months on just one song, to create a massive, powerful sound. Bruce said he wanted to make music that sounded like Roy Orbison singing, with Phil Spector, a famous music producer known for a big sound called the Wall of Sound producing, and Bob Dylan writing the words. He wanted it to be epic. And it was. The songs were long and full of energy, with lots of instruments like guitars, pianos, saxophones, and even bells. When it came out, people went crazy for it, and it has sold over 10 million copies around the world, with more than 7 million in the US alone. It even got Bruce on the covers of Time and Newsweek magazines in the same week, which was a huge deal. The title song, Born to Run, is one of the most famous rock anthems ever. It's about wanting to escape a dead-end town with the girl you love, full of hope and desperation. Other amazing songs like Thunder Road painted vivid pictures of characters dreaming of a better life. Jungle Land was an almost 10-minute epic story with a beautiful saxophone solo by the E Street Band's Clarence Clemons. Bruce Springsteen's lyrics were like poetry, telling stories about working-class kids, fast cars, and the search for freedom and love. His voice was full of passion and urgency. The E Street Band, with musicians like Roy Bittan on piano, Danny Federici on organ, Gary Talent on bass, Max Weinberg on drums, and Clarence Clemons on saxophone, sounded amazing together. They created a rich, powerful sound that was perfect for Bruce's big songs and stories. Born to Run wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a whole world you could get lost in. It gave a voice to young people who felt trapped and dreamed of something more, and it still inspires people today with its energy and its heart. But what if a single, angry album could tear the whole music world apart on purpose? 9. Never Mind the Bollocks, here's the ES Pistols. The S Pistols' only studio album, Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the S Pistols, was so mind-blowing and important because it basically started a music revolution called punk rock in England. It sounded raw, angry, and super energetic, totally different from most of the popular music at the time, which was often very polished or complicated. The S Pistols were loud, rude, and didn't care what anyone thought. Their singer, Johnny Rotten, whose real name was John Lydon, sneered and shouted his lyrics, which were often about being angry at the government, bored with life, or just wanting to cause trouble. The album was so shocking when it came out that many stores refused to sell it and radio stations wouldn't play the songs. But lots of young people loved it because it felt real and exciting, helping it sell over 4 million copies worldwide, a big number for such a controversial record. It went to number 1 on the charts in the UK, even with all the fuss. This album didn't just have a few good songs, it was like a punch in the face to the music world, and it changed everything. The songs on Never Mind the Bollocks were short, fast, and full of attitude. Anarchy in the UK and God Save the Queen were two of their most famous and shocking songs. God Save the Queen was released around the same time as the Queen of England's Silver Jubilee celebration, and it got the band in a lot of trouble because it was seen as being very disrespectful. But it also showed that the band was not afraid to say what they thought. Steve Jones's guitar playing was simple but incredibly powerful and catchy. He created a wall of raw sound. Paul Cook's drumming was fast and driving, and Sid Vicious was the bass player, though some parts on the album were played by Steve Jones or original bassist Glenn Matlock, who co-wrote many of the songs. Johnny Rotten's unique singing style and angry lyrics were impossible to ignore. The album was produced by Chris Thomas, who helped capture their raw energy but also made it sound powerful. Never Mind the Bollocks wasn't about being perfect musicians. It was about energy, attitude, and making a statement. It inspired thousands of kids to pick up guitars and start their own bands, proving you didn't need to be a musical genius to make exciting rock and roll. It truly turned the music world upside down. And finally, the album that created something terrifying, thunderous, and entirely new, the sound of heavy metal being born. 10. Paranoid. Black Sabbath's album Paranoid, released right at the start of the 70s, was so incredibly great and important because it pretty much invented a whole new kind of music, heavy metal. While other bands played heavy rock, Black Sabbath took it to a darker, heavier, and more powerful place. The album was a huge hit, especially in England, where it went to number 1, and it has sold over 12 million copies all around the world, with 4 million of those in America. This was amazing, because their music was so different and much scarier sounding than most popular music at the time. The reason it was so great was because of Tony Iommi's amazing heavy guitar riffs, those catchy repeated guitar parts that make you want to headbang. He had lost the tips of 2 fingers in an accident and had to make special plastic tips and tune his guitar down lower, which actually helped create Black Sabbath's unique heavy sound. Plus, Ozzy Osbourne's spooky wailing voice was totally different from other singers. The album is packed with some of the most famous heavy metal songs ever. The title track, Paranoid, was actually written very quickly in the studio just to fill up space on the album, but it became one of their biggest hits. It's fast, catchy, and full of worried energy. Iron Man is another super famous song with a giant stomping riff, and Ozzy singing through a fan to sound like a robot. War Pigs is a long, powerful song about the horrors of war, with really strong lyrics written by bass player Geezer Butler, who wrote most of the band's words. Geezer's bass playing was also super important, often playing along with Tony's riffs to make the sound even heavier. And Bill Ward's drumming was powerful and had a jazzy feel that made it unique. Black Sabbath songs were often about dark and scary things like war, madness, and evil, which was very different for rock music at the time. Paranoid wasn't just a collection of songs. It was like a blueprint for all the heavy metal bands that came after them. It was raw, powerful, and a little bit frightening, and it changed rock music forever.